Good evening, everyone. I'm Vishal Salsekar, and today we are going to discuss the News Today edition of 27th and 28th of July. Right. So, in this discussion, we are going to discuss total 5 main news, which includes the India and Nepal finalized the mutual legal assistance agreement. Right. So, what this particular agreement is, why there was a need for this particular agreement. Right. Apart from that, next we are going to discuss about the TCS revision of its benching policy, right? We will see what is the bench and what is this particular policy all about. Next is the Uttarakhand to assess the tourist carrying capacity. After this, we are going to discuss about the structural reforms with respect to the Indian Army. So why it is important in the era of the modern warfare. Last, in this particular discussion, we are going to discuss about the global hotspot of the zoonotic threats, right? So there has been a recent report that is highlighting regarding the development of the zoonotic hotspots in certain region, right? After this, we are going to discuss certain quick updates also, right? So let's start the discussion. So the first article we are going to discuss is regarding India and Nepal have finalized the agreement on the mutual legal assistance in the criminal matter. Right. So what is this particular mutual legal assistance and why we need to discuss regarding this particular topic? So if we talk about from the perspective of the UPSC syllabus, this topic is aptly relevant from the GS paper 2 perspective, which includes the topic of India and its neighborhood relation. Apart from that, there are certain bilateral, multilateral and other grouping based agreements that involve the interest of India, right? So we have to be concerned about these particular topic if there is anything with respect to this is in news. Now, when we have to talk about this mutual legal assistance agreement, so for this particular thing, we have to discuss that why we have to be concerned about this topic at all. So generally assume a scenario, there is a criminal, right? Suppose karo, if in the jurisdiction of India, there is a criminal residing, a single individual who might be doing certain criminal activity and now he or she is fleeing to any specific country. Now in this case, we can assume the country is Nepal. Now if India do have any specific treaty with respect to extradition, in that case, what India can do, there will be certain terms and conditions of that treaty through which India can ask Nepal that whatever crime this person XYZ has committed, that is also a crime in your jurisdiction and this person has got shelter in your country. So now as part of this particular treaty, it is responsibility of yours to give that person to India so that we can try that particular person and we can punish the person. Right. So there are many such fugitive economic offenders, maybe certain peoples, including in the organized crime activities, certain people involved in certain, let's say, the fake currency related issues, right? So for those people, this can be a very important and the beneficial thing in order to extradite that person, right? So the process where the person which we are taking back from the other country or the other country is giving us that individual, that kind of agreement is known as the extradition, right? So in this case, suppose if India is asking Nepal to submit that individual to India for the trial and further conviction, so for that particular case, now the Nepal can give that individual to India, right? So this is the extradition. Now, with respect to the mutual legal assistance, why there was a need to do such kind of revision of the agreement. So you can see the treaty previously was in 1953. So from the perspective of 1953, now the time has changed. Now the nature of crime has changed. Right, there has been a lot of incorporation of the digital technology, there has been a lot of evolution of the frauds, right? And the way India and Nepal are arranged as far as the geographical boundaries are concerned, the country is very important from the perspective of India. So in this case, we have to make sure that whatever laws that are there governing the international or the bilateral relations between these two countries should remain relevant for the long time period. So in that particular context, there has been revision in the mutual legal assistance agreement that is being sought by India and Nepal bilaterally. Matlab now they are going to talk about revision of this mutual bilateral legal assistance agreement. Now in this mutual legal assistance agreement, what they are going to do, so in this particular agreement generally kya hota hai, so suppose karo if for certain criminal, in order to establish that that particular person is criminal, you have to give certain evidences, you need to share some intelligence, you need to cooperate on multiple front, and that is not going in unidirectional manner. India will be doing the same for Nepal, and simultaneously Nepal will be doing the same for India, because there may be a chance that person may be fugitive from Nepal residing in India and getting shelter in India, so they can also ask for the mutual legal assistance specifically in the criminal matter, right? So this goes in bi-directional manner, and hence the countries go for signing these kind of mutual legal assistance related agreement. Now why this is important, because many a time in these bordering countries, specifically in the India's neighborhood, when we talk about, there are a lot of trans-boundary criminal activities, including the fake currency, including organized crime, including many other issues that is constantly happening. And we have the presence of, on one side it is Pakistan, on the other side it is China. So at that point of time, it is very, very important, because with Nepal, India is having an open border agreement. That's why we have to revise these kind of treaties. Now, when we talk about the mutual legal assistance treaty, India is having the treaty with 42 countries. So there may be a question in the prelims that UPSC might be saying that the Nepal is the only country with which India is having the mutual legal assistance agreement. The answer will be no. There are 42 countries with which India has signed this mutual legal assistance agreement. Now, what will be the benefit? So, as I have already suggested, that if there are any treaty between the two countries, the sharing of the intelligence, sharing of these information with respect to criminal, sharing of the information regarding how these groups are operating and how these particular groups are evolving, the way they are conducting their operations. So, all these things will be known to the each other country, and then they can coordinate and cooperate in order to eliminate those kind of threats, right? So the formalization and the standardization procedure with respect to the cooperation in the criminal matters, faster investigation and the prosecution, which will be the result of this. Now, when it comes to the extradition, for this the Ministry of External Affairs is the central authority, because there is the country ke beech mein cooperation ki zarurat hai, right? So here the MEA is coming into picture. But when it comes to sharing the information through the mutual legal assistance agreement, there is this Ministry of Home Affairs, which is the central authority. Now, this can become a very important fact from the perspective of UPSC examination, because like this only UPSC framed the statement. So, for extradition, it is MEA. For the mutual legal assistance agreement, it is the Ministry of Home Affairs, right? Now, talking about the challenges faced, because right now there is a extradition treaty, and the right now whatever framework is there, that is based upon the time period of 1953. So the situation evolved, and the Nepal is only one such country apart from Bhutan, because with Bhutan we do have a lot of bilateral relation at that level, so that we can communicate, we can share the concern, and even those particular concerns are being addressed. But with Nepal, certain issues are in existence, right? That's why having a formal architecture in the form of mutual legal assistance agreement will be helpful in formalizing these things. So right now whatever is going on in the ad hoc manner, that can be further formalized with having some treaty. Now, why the challenges are being faced with respect to the India and Nepal and these kind of issues, because you might have seen in a lot of, let's say, documentary or maybe in the news or even in movies, so many a time it is mentioned that whether it is fake currency, whether it is trans-border crime, so generally the route that is being taken by many such criminal networks, that is through Nepal, or that is via Nepal. Why so? Because we do have a open border agreement with Nepal. So in that particular agreement, roughly there is 1700 kilometers ka boundary with Nepal. And when we do have this open border, that is exploited or utilized by the actors which are working against India. For example, let's say a hypothetical scenario where a Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist which had performed certain terrorist activities in India, and now he or she had fled to Nepal. Now the jurisdiction had changed. So if the Nepalese authorities are catching or arresting that person, if there is a agreement between these two countries like India and Nepal, the extradition or let's say the prosecution of that particular person on the India's concern will be comparatively easier if there are formal procedures. If there are not, then obviously it will be based upon the ad hoc basis only. So first is open border exploitation. Next is the criminal safe havens. Now this kind of channel is helping criminals to ensure that they are getting the safe havens. So that is going on again in the bidirectional manner. The people can be entering in India from the route of Nepal, or people performing any specific activities which is illicit in nature and then fleeing back to Nepal and through Nepal to some third countries, right? So that's how they are evading the jurisdiction. So the Nepal is also sometime acting as a criminal safe havens. Apart from that, the reciprocity uncertainty. Right now, everything is depending upon the ad hoc basis. If the relations are comparatively better, the extradition might be happening with ease. But if the relations are getting sore, then in that case, there may be some issues. So right now, there are a lot of uncertainties. So what should be done? There should be signing of the mutual legal assistance treaty. And apart from that, there should be revision, or let's say incorporation of the new time and space ke basis pe whatever things are needed, that should be incorporated in the extradition treaty which was signed in 1953, right? So now talking about the importance of this particular topic for UPSC, now you can see at any point of time when there are any issues going on in the neighborhood countries, or let's say the major countries which is of India's concern, UPSC has the tendency to ask the question. Sometimes they ask the question in the form of that once they are asking, let's say the community and the country why they were in news. Sometimes they are also asking in that manner. Even in the mains examination, they can frame the question like concerning the overall terrorist architecture, because recently we had seen Operation Sindoor, right? So now on the other front also there is China, and then China is putting a lot of pressure on Nepal, or in manipulation of Nepal in order to go or take its stance against India. So that's why again Nepal-India relations are very, very important in that concern. So we have to have an idea about what are the areas where we can explore further cooperation that can be done in order to improve the scenario of partnership between these two countries, right? Next article that we have to discuss is about the benching policy of TCS. So the TCS has revised its policy, which is raising concerns regarding the layoffs, because what TCS has actually done. And before understanding that particular thing, let's briefly talk about what is the bench time. So generally kya hota hai, whenever you are joining, let's say any specific IT firm. So when you are joining that firm, now the firm works like this. Let's have a brief discussion about this. So how this scenario actually works, so that we can have a clear idea about this. So suppose karo, this is a IT firm, right? Now you as an employee are working in the IT firm. Now this IT firm is providing services to multiple clients. So there can be client 1, then client 2, then maybe client 3. Like this, there may be numerous clients. So for example, let's say there may be one client like Sony, another client maybe let's say RAC or any other specific company which is taking services from the IT company. In this case, it is TCS. Now the employees are working for the client, but they are not independently working for client. They are part of the TCS and hence working for client. Now whenever employee of TCS is working for client 1, those particular people are being billed or being provided money. मतलब कंपनी को ये क्लाइंट पैसे देते हैं. The client pays to company for the employees they are taking services. That's why when you as a person is working for any specific client in a company, so you are being billed by the client. मतलब आपके जो पैसे हैं, that is being paid by that particular client. So client 1, let's say, is paying for 10 people. Those services the client 1 is taking. Client 2 is paying for, let's say, 20 people, and accordingly that will be decided obviously not by their salary, but it will be decided by that particular firm. मतलब आप ये समझ लीजिए कि the money is being taken from the client by this particular company on behalf of the employee. Now the salaries are being provided by employee. Now what is the bench time? The time period when the employee is not working for any of these clients. The employee is sitting on the bench or out of any project of any of the client. Now you will say, How can that be possible? Yes, that's possible. Because when a company is very large, there are many such clients. Let's say there are thousands of clients. Now, whatever skills you might be possessing at that point of time, right now, there is no such vacancy of any specific client that might be there. Now, the company will try to fit you with some client where your skills might be utilized. But then kya ho sakta hai that you might not be opting for that particular opportunity. Why so? Because let's say you might have competency in Java. That company wants or that client wants C++ competency. These are the languages. Now in that case, what happens that you might not be going for that particular language. आप सोचोगे कि why should I go for C++? I have the competency in Java. समझ रहे हो? So in that particular case, what you will do, you will try to keep yourself out of the project. That means at that point of time, no client is paying for you and you are being paid by company. तो आपके पैसे तो company देगी. Salary is being paid by company, but your money is not that company is getting from any of the client. That's how it is causing the strain on the company's resources. Now, previously, the time period was comparatively relaxed. What TCS had done, TCS has reduced it to 36 days. Means in a financial year, only for 36 days or working days you can remain on bench, matlab not being billed by any of the client. Uske beyond if you go, if you do not opt for any project which is assigned to you, or agar aap opt out karte ho, in that case you might be hampering your career progression and maybe you might be part of the layoffs. So I hope that this scenario you might have got. Now, why it is important from the examination perspective? Because in GS3, economic development and employment is a topic, right? Even in GS2, there are topics with respect to the governance related aspects. Apart from that, there is the aspect of unemployment insurance, then the job transition support schemes, then inadequate training policies and all. These are also part of the syllabus, like the Skill India that we had talked about, or the skilling initiatives that we have talked about, right? So now talking about this, let's have the further discussion about this. So I hope now you might have got the idea regarding the bench time, right? So what has been done, TCS ne kya kiya? What TCS has done, 36 business days a year. So maximum 36 business days for which company is ready to bear your burden without putting any disadvantage on you. But if you exceed this timeline, then company might put you in disadvantage. Means there may be, let's say your grading might be reduced. Let's say your salary might be cut a bit. और डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द कंपनी पॉलिसी, लेट्स से योर प्रमोशन की जगह पर कुछ डिमोशन हो जाए, या यू हैव टू असाइंड विथ दैट पर्टिकुलर प्रोजेक्ट, अदरवाइज द ले ऑफ माइट आल्सो बी देयर, राइट? सो व्हाई आईटी फर्म्स आर रीअसेसिंग देयर बेंचिंग पॉलिसी? नाउ यू माइट हैव, that's why I have given time to make you understand that how this benching policy might be constraining the resources of company. Because when you are on bench, that means you are not being paid by any client. तो कोई client आपके लिए company को पैसा नहीं दे रहा है. That means you are just there on the company's resources. So the company has to bear the cost of you. That's why in order to ensure the better cost management, they might be laying you off. If you are not taking any project, they might be laying you off. That will be ensuring the cost optimization for company. Then the demand supply gap. Let's say the client previously used to be 1000. Now there are only 900 clients. So 100 clients ka reduction hai, right? So eventually there will be even lesser number of employee that will be needed. Now ho sakta hai there may be many people sitting on the bench. That means not allocated to any project. In that case, demand kam hai, supply zyada hai. So in order to rearrange that demand and supply gap, that particular policy is also needed in order to assess the benching policy. Apart from that, the utilization rates. Sometimes what happens that company has spent on you, on the training, on giving you certain competencies. Now you might have served in one project. Aap uske baad that, let's say that particular project got ended. Now you have to be assigned to some other client because company to same hai. The client will change. So once you assign to another client, now maybe a chance you might not like that client, so you might reject that client because of your competencies and all. So that utilization nahi ho pa raha hai aapka based upon the competencies that you have. So in that case, the utilization rates को better करने के लिए company reassess करती है अपनी benching policy. And it's only about the TCS. There are all the IT firms which are of that scale. Let's say Wipro, let's say Infosys, let's say Capgemini, or any other firms. They go for this particular thing that generally the client is paying for you when you are as an employee of that particular company, because the client is taking your services, right? Now, we have discussed about that what are the things because of which the company is reassessing these policies. Now, what are the ethical and social concerns? The first is about the corporate social responsibility. We know that the corporations are utilizing certain resources which are the social resources, right? And even corporates have some responsibility because they are taking support from the government, and they also have to give something to the society. There is the corporate social responsibility. So as a part of that, they also have to give society, not necessarily that for everything they are taking the profit. So they have to give something as their social responsibility also. So in that context, ensuring the fair and the humane workforce management practices is also one such thing. So arbitrary layoffs या इस तरीके से policies might be hampering the country like India, where a lot of people are dependent upon the IT services related jobs. Apart from that, the workers' right. Now see, generally these particular companies were known for their ethical principles. Now having the hire and fire policy means right now you are in the need for those employees, you are taking those employees. Once your need is satisfied, once your client have reduced, now you are laying off those people. So this is a hire and fire culture, and the pioneers like TCS are going for these policies. Then it might cause or set a precedent for the other companies also. They can also go for similar policies. Then the psychological impact. Then suppose karo, if you are having training in competency A, or मान लीजिए if you are not getting that particular kind of project, you might be getting the project of competency B, which is completely apart. Now if the company is forcing you to take that thing, so first thing, the issue will be that if you do not take that opportunity, you will be on bench, and beyond a certain limit, if you are on bench, you might be hampering your career progression. First thing, there may be layoff also. Apart from that, even if you take that opportunity, you are completely drifting from whatever competencies you had previously. है ना, आप A से B की तरफ मूव कर गए. So you are not able to get expertise with respect to any specific thing. अब उस वजह से क्या होता है, देयर इज द साइकोलॉजिकल इंपैक्ट. देयर विल बी स्ट्रेस, एंजाइटी, अ लॉट ऑफ इश्यूज दैट यू एज अ इंडिविजुअल एंड एम्प्लॉय विल बी facing, right? So what should be the way ahead? So the way ahead is, on one side there is profit, on the other side there is certain responsibility. So the way ahead lies in between, where there is a need for certain collaborative and the empathetic approach. Apart from that, skilling, like let's say reskilling, upskilling. So Skill India mission we had already talked about. So these kind of things can be utilized. There should be further training. For example, let's say the developing technologies like the artificial intelligence, machine learning, these should be provided with the due diligence by the company, so that the workforce can be engaged in more productive aspects. Now see, in this context, UPSC can ask the question, because society and social justice mein these particular topic will be very, very important. UPSC had asked the question about the work from home culture. So regarding this also, UPSC can ask the question, right? Next topic is, in a first, Uttarakhand to assess the tourist carrying capacity in the Nainital district. Now see, this particular topic is not only UPSC relevant, but it is as a human being, as an individual of the society, and as a person who is considering that there is, every place has certain carrying capacity. What is carrying capacity? Suppose karo, this is a classroom, right? There might be 200 chairs in this room. So the carrying capacity will be 200 only. Now, if I ask that 400 students should be sitting in this room, what will be the impact? First, that everyone will not get the seat to sit. Apart from that, what will be the issue? There will be suffocation in this room. There will be issues with respect to accessing services. For example, suppose karo, because of something one need to rush to the gate, so there will be hindrance to that, because students might be sitting over there also. So these are the issues regarding carrying capacity. So like this classroom, every place also has this carrying capacity. Even the earth has the carrying capacity. Every biodiversity zone has the carrying capacity. Every mountainous region has the carrying capacity. But what actually happens, that वो होता है ना, गर्मी आती है, चलो we go to Masuri, or let's say we go to Manali, and the kind of destruction we are already seeing, that when we are moving in mindless manner, there are the disasters that are following, right? So believe it or not, so this is happening because of the increase of the anthropogenic activities in those fragile ecosystems. So from the perspective of UPSC paper, GS3, which includes the environment, aspects of the pollution, degradation, disaster management, this topic is very, very important. So what actually has been done, that now Uttarakhand is assessing that what is the tourist carrying capacity of its different districts, because these are the tourist hotspot. So on one hand, they have to manage the tourist because they are the source of income. On the other hand, they have to also maintain that there should not be that much disaster, because if you talk about the disaster, the states like Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand are the worst sufferer of the disasters, be it the landslide, be it the cloud burst, be it the issues with respect to pollution. All these are increasing in these particular regions, right? So what is the issue that we have discussed? Now, what is the carrying capacity? I hope that you might have got through the analogy I have provided you. So it is the maximum threshold of the population an area can bear. That means, suppose karo, if let's say in the region, let's say in a specific area of Delhi, if there may be 10,000 population that the area can accommodate, and if you ask that lakh of the student or let's say the population should be residing in this area, then in that case obviously everyone will not be able to enjoy those resources. So there will be resource constraint, there will be issues in accessing basic facilities, and eventually there will be, on one day or other, there will be disaster like situation. So there will be impact on both biotic like vegetation, hydrology, and also abiotic means terrain and the climatic factor. And because if there will be rise of the anthropogenic activity, that rise of anthropogenic activity will also going to cause rise of the greenhouse gases emission, and that will going to alter the ecosystem in totality. Now, what are the approaches in assessing the carrying capacity? The first approach in assessing the carrying capacity means what is the carrying capacity of this particular region. First is the planetary boundaries approach, means suppose karo there is a ecosystem, means before having there an issue of that particular region, there should be a safe limit. Jaise with respect to Paris Agreement, you might have heard of that the countries had taken a pledge not to increase the carbon emission so that the global temperature should not go beyond 2 degrees Celsius, and they should strive for reducing it to 1.5 degree. Means the 1.5 degree is considered as a safe level. If that will go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, there will be rise of the greenhouse gases, rise of the greenhouse gases, and the temperature is increasing. That will be impacting the glacier regions, and when the glaciers are melting, there will be rise of the sea surface level, and once there will be rise of the sea surface level, there will be issue of the submergence of the small island countries, right? So this planetary boundary approaches suggest that there are certain parameters based upon which we can identify the safe limit. On that safe limit, if we are keeping the resources utilization, then we will be able to protect ourselves from certain kind of disaster. But if we are going beyond that, in that case there will be issues. So let's say with respect to global warming, with respect to climate change, with respect to the land utilization, there is a safe limit. So this approach suggests that we should be remaining in the safe limit in order to have an idea or clear understanding about the carrying capacity. Another thing is the biocapacity overshoot approach. What is the biocapacity overshoot approach? Means suppose karo, if we take Earth as a whole, right, there are different resources. There is vegetation, there are animals, there are human beings, there are different other variety of the biodiversity. In that case kya hota hai ki we are consuming those particular biodiversity. Now what happens actually, that the biodiversity ki jo capacity hai, that is also limited. So for the entire year there is, suppose karo if we are distributing biodiversity या फिर बायोमास, सो फॉर इंटायर ईयर अगर वो बायोमास है, एंड वी एज अ ह्यूमन बीइंग एंड इवन इंटायर इकोसिस्टम ऑफ द अर्थ, इफ वी आर कंज्यूमिंग दैट इंटायर ईयर का बायोमास विद इन लेट्स से 7 or 8 months, दैट मीन्स फॉर 4 months देयर विल बी इशू, मीन्स वी आर एक्सीडिंग दैट पर्टिकुलर कैपेसिटी. That means this is the biocapacity overshoot approach. Means we, whatever resources should have been utilized in 12 months, we are utilizing in 8 months or 9 months. Means 3 महीने के लिए अब हमें अगले साल के resources use करना पड़ेगा. And for that there are different parameters like earth overshoot days. This suggests that सपोज करो टिल 31st of December जो रिसोर्सेज यूज किए जाने थे, दिस अर्थ ओवरशूट डे लेट्स से इट फॉल्स इन जुलाई और अगस्त, दैट मींस इट सजेस्ट दैट आपके जो 12 महीने के रिसोर्सेज थे यू हैव यूटिलाइज्ड इन 7 to 8 or 9 months. Means for 3 months you are now lacking those particular resources, means you are utilizing the resources of next year. So this is reducing the age of earth, or age of earth means the carrying capacity is getting reduced, right? Now what are the precautionary principles? Let's see why understanding of the carrying capacity is important, because beyond carrying capacity, if you will go, one day or other there will be disaster. You can talk about, let's say, Joshimath, where there was a small village. That village over a period of time developed in the form of the town or a major town that became a tourist hotspot, and eventually there was the disaster in 2023. Similarly, every year you hear about Manali, every year you hear about, let's say, Nainital or different places. The way vehicles are moving to those regions, they are carrying the carbon dioxide also, greenhouse gas emission is increases, and that particular emission is impacting. Along with that, there is pollution also, there is the noise pollution also, that is also impacting the mountainous ecology. So the carrying capacity suggests that we should be limiting ourselves to that range in order to prevent any kind of disaster. So for that, there are precautionary principles. So precautionary principles suggest, first is taking preventive action in the face of uncertainty. Matlab, we should be taking certain preventive action rather than we should go for cure and disaster management. पहले से ही preventive actions होने चाहिए. Means limit the number of vehicles, make certain zones as the eco-sensitive zone like this. Then the shifting of burden of proof on the proponents of the activity. Matlab, people should also be held responsible for certain kind of mindless tourism. You talk about, let's say, pilgrimage site, and you go there as a tourist hotspot, right? Every year you are seeing the reels on Instagram and everyone goes to those particular region without taking into consideration that that region also have certain limited capacity. Then the exploring alternatives to potential harmful actions. Matlab, if this should not be, then what can alternatively be done, right? So that also can be done. Apart from that, increasing public participation in the decision making, so that the locals should also have say whether they want this much people to enter into those regions or not, because ultimately the worst sufferers will be those peoples who are primarily resident of that specific regions, right? Now see, though directly questions were not asked, but there are questions that are inspired from this. The question was asked twice regarding the cloudburst, regarding the urban floods, regarding the flooding in the urban areas. That has been increased because of the impact of climate change. Now you can relate why urban floods are there, because we are going more than the capacity of that particular region. We are clogging the drains. We are not cleaning them at that particular point of time where they should be cleaned. And that's why the carrying capacity se jab exceed hota hai, that causes the disaster. Similarly, describe the various causes and the effect of the landslide. Mention the important components of the landslide risk management strategy. So again, क्यों लैंडस्लाइड हो रही है? One such reason is we are going beyond the carrying capacity, and that particular thing is fracturing the land, and that there is landslip we are observing, right? So they are also related. Next article that we have to discuss about is the Indian Army's enhancing combat capabilities to advance the integrated battle group doctrine. So there are few things which we have to understand apart from certain restructuring being done by army. Now, from the perspective of UPSC examination, GS3 has the internal security topic. So from the perspective of security and disaster management, this topic is very, very important. The role of certain security forces and their mandate, apart from that role of external state, non-state actors, the changing nature of warfare, everywhere this kind of article will be very, very important. Now, what are the important things? So in the wake of Operation Sindoor, we have seen that the preemptive strikes are important, and they are going to be reality if we are going to face in future any kind of terrorist attacks. So this will be the modus operandi from now onwards. Now, what is the thing that we have also seen, that there is a drone and also artificial intelligence integrated warfare wala zone, including the information wala aspect, right? All these are the inherent component of the warfare. Now when these are the inherent component of warfare, there is a need to ensure that all the stakeholders should be in sync. So that's why what Indian Army had done. So Indian Army is establishing the Rudra brigades and the Bhairav commando battalions to enhance the swift offensive capabilities, right? Whenever there has to be any kind of these preemptive actions, or let's say the counter retaliation wala thing, at that point of time the swift actions will be needed, so that everything which has to be mobilized in order to counter those issues or counter those threat or threat perception, that should be mobilized very, very quickly. One such issue we had seen in the previous kind of terror attacks, let's say when it is the parliament attack, or let's say it is 26/11, that the agility was somewhere lacking. That means decisions were taken by someone else. Apart from that, the execution will be done by someone else, and on the ground someone else is being deployed. So there is a gap at each and every stage, and that causes the lag. So there has to be an integrated structure where everything from the decision to providing policy guidelines to execution all will be lying at the same place. So for that particular thing, what Indian Army has done, Indian Army has made a Bhairav Light Commando Battalion. Now what is this Light Commando Battalion? Means this particular battalion will be equipped with the modern warfare techniques. They will be equipped with certain kind of agile nature wala tool, so that the mobilization will be very very quick. अगर कहीं पर कोई सिनेरियो होता है which is related to, let's say, hostage, let's say any counter strikes, let's say any surgical strikes, so these can be mobilized very very quickly because these are the light commando battalion. They will be having high speed, high mobility, high maneuverability, right, and including equipness with all the kind of technological things that is needed in order to perform those operations. So whether it is drone, surveillance or any other thing, that will be provided to them. So it is the Bhairav Light Commando Battalion. Next is, with respect to this, is the Rudra All Arm Brigade. Now when we talk about brigade, and all arm brigade means whatever is needed for that entire theater. For example, there will be a need for the infantry, there will be the machine infantry, there will be need for drone, there will be need for rocket launchers, there will be need for the anti-defense mechanisms, right? So all these things. Apart from that, there should be certain forces which will be quick, agile, right? So this all arm brigade will be ensuring that everything is equipped here, whether it is helicopter, whether it is air power, all these things, including even the kind of interception and giving retaliation, all these things will be part of this. So Rudra All Arm Brigade is basically integrated formation comprising infantry, mechanized infantry, tank, artillery, UAV, special forces, right? So all in one is the Rudra All Arm Brigade. And the Bhairav Light Commando Battalions is swift, agile, एक छोटी सी टुकड़ी मान लो, that will be having the information wala aspect, and apart from that the reconnaissance and the high speed mobility, everything will be there. Now apart from that also, what government has done or what army has done, the Shaktiban Artillery Regiment bhi bana rahe hain. They have also prepared a Shaktiban Artillery Regiment. There will be special Divya Drishti surveillance. Divya Drishti means there will be some kind of, let's say, the surveillance or reconnaissance, and then there will be loitering munition batteries. Means it is also equipped with all these kind of air power that is needed. And Divya Drishti means they will be even able to get the threat perception and even countering that particular thing, right? So the Shaktiban Artillery Regiment with the special Divya Drishti surveillance, because we have also seen that the surveillance is very very important, because if there is any kind of potential threat across the region, if we are able to intercept it very very quickly, then we will be able to mobilize our anti-defense forces. For example, either the S-400 may be there, or maybe the Akash missile, or any other thing which can be utilized, right? Now this brings us to the concept of the integrated battle group. What are the integrated battle group? So generally क्या होता है, let's say infantry is mainly having the land power. Apart from that, they might be sometimes lacking in, let's say, the air power wala thing, right? So in the integrated battle group, it will be all the kind of things which will be needed for performing work in that specific theater. For example, let's say a theater where there is a valley region, and in that particular valley region there is a need to ensure certain operation. So this integrated battle group will be having all the equipments which will include identifying the threat from that region, having awareness regarding the terrain, having an idea how to perform warfare in that particular terrain, and what is the kind of task that they have to perform, whether it is taking control over the enemy checkpost, whether it is holding that particular territory, or whether that particular territory should be utilized for certain other further victories, right? So all these things will be done by this integrated battle group. So this will be a specialized battle group which will be agile, like we had discussed already regarding in the context of the Rudra All Arm Brigade. This is coming close to the integrated battle group. So similar kind of things we are able to get in the integrated battle groups. So in the integrated battle groups, they will be having roughly 5,000 ke around personals, and that will be basically headed by the brigadier or the major general level officers. Now there is a term that is often used in this context as the cold start doctrine. Cold start doctrine mein basically you are rapidly mobilizing the forces, and then performing the operation very, very swiftly and come back to your territory. So whatever surgical strike that we had seen in 2016 aftermath of Uri and Pulwama Uri and Pathankot attacks, after that what surgical strike was, it was somewhat conceptualization of the cold start doctrine, means rapidly mobilizing and deploying the forces, limited, swift and the focused strike against the enemy territories. Let's say in our case it is Pakistani territories, right? So this is the cold start doctrine. Now what is this operational philosophy of IBG, integrated battle groups? So there will be preemptive strikes, right? So if you have threat perception, you can go for the preemptive strikes like we have done after the Pahalgam terror attack. After that, dislocation means strike on the vulnerability, matlab jahan par we know that there are terrorists occupied, attack on that particular region. And disintegrate means there should be a disintegration that should be done, ki unka link toot jaye, so that there should be, if reinforcement comes, that will be coming at a bit delay, so that we will be able to get time to come back safely to our places. Time, space, force, information dominance. So basically it is going to talk about the entire theater. Time, space, force, information, comprehensively you have to control. Even the modern warfare technologies you should be equipped with. Apart from that, the technological empowerment and the force modernization. So whatever modern warfare wala aspect is needed, let's say the deployment of drone, deployment of AWACS, deployment of, let's say, the anti-aircraft missiles and all, right? So all these things should be deployed at one place. So it is in general talking about that all the things which are needed in order to perform that combat operation at one place in an integrated command, so that the decision making will be very, very quick. Last in this is the article about the new study that identifies the global hotspot for the zoonotic threats. Now, from the perspective of UPSC, this particular topic is important from GS paper 3 because again, the environment, biodiversity, disaster management. In the wake of COVID, we have seen that these kind of scenarios can also turn the issues in the form of the disasters, right? So there is a need for the disaster management also. So what are the zoonotic diseases? So zoonotic diseases are those diseases which spread in the human being from the animals. Now the animal may be acting as a carrier, but the vector can be, it can be virus, it can be bacteria, it can be parasite also. So either from human to animal, animal to human, these kind of diseases will be known as the zoonotic diseases. Now there is a first comprehensive global assessment of on the zoonotic diseases. Now this is covering different zoonotic diseases like Ebola, Nipah virus, etc. Right. Now, why this is important? And see, the report is talking about certain important data. Now, these data can be utilized in our answer. For example, the report says that the disease outbreak के लिए जो hotspots हैं, 9.3% of the landscape जो है entire world का, that is at the high risk. So 6.3% is at high risk and 3% is at very high risk. So basically in that case, 9.3% of the world is at the high risk as far as the zoonotic disease are concerned. And when it is at high risk, you should be prepared in order to counter those specific diseases. Zoonotic, a global zoonotic disease hotspot. So region wise, if we talk about Latin America and Oceania, 18.6%. Then apart from that, Asia 6.9% and Africa 5.2%. Now just try to imagine that which will be the places where the impact or the kind of incidences of the zoonotic diseases will be very, very high. It will be generally those places where you will be able to see the herds of animal, or where there are conditions to keep animals are in not a very good manner, right? So that there will be issues or diseases that will be getting developed in those animals, and through that animals it is going to be impacting the human beings also, right? So these are the zoonotic diseases. Now how you are going to utilize this data? So if there is a question regarding zoonotic diseases, in order to establish the issue or the gravity of the situation, these are the important data fact that you can utilize. Even with respect to the population, you can talk about that roughly 3% of the world population is in the high or very high risk. So high or very high risk zone जो है, where there roughly 3% of population is residing, and medium risk areas is 20%. So basically these are the regions which are going to get impacted a lot whenever there is a zoonotic diseases. Now zoonotic diseases are being triggered by certain anthropogenic forces, because when we are triggering something, let's say in the context of COVID-19 also, there were a lot of animal killing going on illegally at certain places. Those led to creation of certain virus, and then eventually those things can be spreading from animal, then animal to human, and then eventually it can be contaminating disease, and that can spread like wildfire, right? So like this, there are multiple anthropogenic driver. First is the climate factor. Now with respect to climate change, what is happening, that the global temperature is increasing, and the warmer temperature is basically facilitating the spread of these kind of diseases, right? So climate change is causing the warmer temperature, and this is rising, and further it is also erratic rainfalls hai, congestions hai. So all these things are going to create the issues with respect to zoonotic diseases. Then the water deficit. Suppose there are certain regions which are water deficit. Now what animals will do and the human beings will do, they will go to some place where the water availability is there, and near that particular region there will be a high concentration of animals, and that particular high concentration of animal have the potential to create the zoonotic diseases. Next is about the environment and the land use factor. So high livestock density, the places where high livestock density is there, apart from this, the conditions are filthy, conditions are not good to keep them, right? At that place also there is issues of zoonotic disease. Frequent land use changes means right now you are utilizing this particular land for some purposes, then apart from that you will be excessively utilizing that particular land, and that might be causing the reduction of land productivity. Now you will be moving to certain other region. So this land use change also triggers the issue of concentration of the animal and human being to certain places, and that might also causes a lot of interaction in that sense that leads to spread of the zoonotic diseases. Apart from that, see, the one such thing is the population density. Once there is a population density at any specific place, that particular place may be highly vulnerable for the zoonotic diseases. Now the policy recommendation will be the climatic adaptation, means you should be utilizing the climate specific policies in order to reverse the issues caused by the climate change. Sustainable land use practices, right? So the way land is being utilized for agriculture and other activities, that should be sustainable manner. Urban planning should be there, proper urban planning, because agar urban planning poor rahi, so in that case also this density wala factor is going to increase and causing the filthy conditions. Health system strengthening, so there should be better surveillance. Then the machine learning model, the data should be gathered properly, and the collaboration across sector. So all the sectors which are responsible from the data to execution to performing these things, and apart from that formulating laws and rules regarding that, that should be going on in a single way. Matlab there should be one health approach that should be. Now there are certain quick updates that we have to discuss. The first in the quick updates is about the exercise Bold Kurukshetra. So see, whenever there is any specific exercise that is there, what you have to remember about that exercise is the countries which are participating. Now, if it is a bilateral exercise where India is there, it is very important. Just the name of that exercise and the concerned countries, apart from that, which particular theater, whether it is Army, Navy or Air Force. If it is a multi-country exercise, just know whether India is part of it. If it is 3-4 country exercise, then to you should be knowing about the name of country. But if it is a multi-country exercise, 20-30 countries, no need to remember all the countries, but have an idea regarding whether India is member of that particular exercise or not. Now what is being done in these exercises? So these exercises are for the interoperability, for the best practices, for the theater readiness or the performance of certain simulations, so that they will get to know about when there will be actual warfare scenario, what will be the cooperation. So in the exercise Bold Kurukshetra, it is between the India and Singapore. Now this is the exercise between India and Singapore, Bold Kurukshetra 2025. Date is not that important, right? It is a tabletop exercise and the computer based war game. So basically this is the exercise where the people from both the army people are sitting, they are engaged in certain kind of simulation which will be helping to simulate certain computer based war game. Means suppose there is cyber security issue or any other issue which happens, then how they are going to cooperate with each other's armies, right? So the best practices sharing. Next is about the organic certification. So recently the APEDA has refuted the certain allegations against the organic cotton certification. So there were certain allegations that were there that the certification was not done with the due process. So in that case, the allegations were refuted. Now in that context, the body which is important is the National Program for the Organic Production, NPOP. Now, whenever we talk about program, I have already conveyed to you that you should be having an idea about which is the implementing authority and which is the ministry. So it is being implemented by APEDA, right? And the ministry which is responsible is the Union Ministry of the Commerce and Industry, which is governing that. Now, what is the task of the National Program for Organic Production? It is doing the accreditation to the certification body, that the certification bodies को accreditation provide करती है, that these bodies now can certify with respect to the organic products. Apart from that, setting the standards for the organic production, that this is maybe the category with which the products are there, then that product can be categorized as the organic product. Then the promotion of the organic farming and the marketing, that what should be the standards for organic farming, the promotion of that organic farming, right? So that the spread of organic farming is going to increase. Apart from that, this particular this particular body is also recognized by the European Commission and also Switzerland, which are having comparatively high idea regarding the organic production and organic certification. So the standards are also got recognized from the European Commission and the Switzerland. Apart from that, the participatory guarantee system PGS India certification. So this talks about the local level certification where the producer, consumers and even different local are able to provide the certification related support. So this is a kind of bottom up approach that you can consider. Next is the heavy water. So the context to this particular news is the Tema India Limited commissioned India's first private test facility for the depleted heavy water upgradation. So generally it is being done by the state agencies like BARC and all, but now Tema India is the first private test facility, has commissioned the first private test facility. Now in that particular context, what is important? So heavy water. So with respect to heavy water, the formula is D2O, which is the deuterium oxide. So what is deuterium? Deuterium is basically the isotope of hydrogen which is heavier in nature. So hydrogen H2O generally लिखते हैं, right? So normal water, but in the context of deuterium oxide, it is D2O. And why it is important? Because it is very, very important thing as a moderator and the coolant in the reactor. What is the work of moderator? Moderator is basically controlling the neutron emission, and the coolant is keeping the core cool so that the temperature should not increase in such a manner that the core will blast or maybe melt itself. Okay? So that's why there will be a need for the moderator and the coolant for the neutron control, and apart from that there is a need for coolant also, right? The flame retardant material. So what is the context for this? ICMR has submitted to NGT that it will initiate a study to evaluate whether the chemical compounds found in the flame retardant materials are potentially carcinogenic. Now, what are the flame retardant? Generally, whenever we have to make any specific product which will be either not catching fire or for the fire kind of scenario, when we are using certain chemicals. So those particular chemicals are known as the fire retardants. Now, when we utilize that, we are also exposing to those chemicals, and this is the studies that are being conducted that says that they may be the potentially carcinogenic, right? So the chemicals applied to the material to prevent burning or slow spread of fire. So that suppose if this is a wooden podium, right? So in that particular case, if I want to make it the less fire catching, right? So I have to add or at least add a coat of the fire retardant material so that it will not be catching fire or catching fire comparatively slowly after a long exposure, right? So in that particular case, the flame retardant materials are being utilized, and in that particular sense, there is a potential carcinogenic that are reported over here. So that is the context regarding this. Now, they are the highly resistant to the degradation in the environment. So they are also highly resistant for degradation. Now, there are certain chemicals used. I don't think so that UPSC might be asking, but still you can see, for example, tris 1-chloro isopropyl phosphate, then tris 1,3-dichloropropyl phosphate. So you can see one specific thing over here. It is chloroisopropyl, it is a dichloropropyl, and then it is chloroethyl phosphate. So it is chloro and ethyl. Sometimes it is isopropyl, matlab it has the halogens within this, like the chlorine, your propane and all these things that are being used. Next article that we have to discuss is regarding Majuli Island. So now what is the context of this particular news is that the Majuli residents combat the riverbank erosion by planting the kanchan trees along the Brahmaputra river, right? So in that particular context, now the Majuli becomes very, very important. Why Majuli Island is important? Because this is the largest river island which is situated in the Brahmaputra river. Now this itself is a district. So when it is a district, now this also becomes very, very important. Now talking about this Majuli Island, on the south side it is the Brahmaputra river, in the north side it is the Kherkutia Suti and the Subansiri river. So on the both side, from all side it is surrounded by the river. In the north side it is the Kherkutia Suti and the Subansiri river, and in the south it is the Brahmaputra river. Now it is also surrounded by the beels or the wetland. Beels are the, in the local language they are known as the wetlands. Apart from that, there are other small islets which are known as the chaporis. Now UPSC can ask these specific facts. Apart from that, it is also part of the tentative list for the UNESCO's World Heritage Site. So basically, if 1 year has been already completed in this tentative list, now there can be nomination for this particular island that can also be filed in order to get it recognized as the World Heritage Site. Lastly, it is culturally also very, very important. So there are Sattaras, which are the Vaishnavite monasteries. So Sri Shankar Dev, who was basically pioneer of the Vaishnavite movement in the Assam region, so he established a lot of Sattaras. So there is a Sattariya dance that you might have seen, or this is also part of the classical dances of India. So that is also originated from the region, right? So that's why this Majuli Island is very important, not only geographically but even culturally, right? Next in this context is the deep brain simulation. So what is the context? Deep brain simulation is a medical technique where the doctors implant electrodes deep inside the specific areas of brain to treat certain disorders. So suppose if there is any specific brain related disorder, what doctors are doing, basically they are implanting certain electrodes in the brain, and then there is a pacemaker kind of machine that is attached to the chest very near to heart, so that we can artificially provide certain signaling to the brain, so that those disruptive signals or certain impulses that are being reached to brain naturally, that can be discarded and we can channelize the thought process in the brain. So the signals can be sent artificially to the brain in order to avoid that kind of disorder, right? So it is connected to a pacemaker like device which is placed in the skin near the chest, which sends the controlled electrical impulses to adjust the abnormal brain activity. Because see, the way the brain activity is done, that is deciding what you are going to perform. So it is controlling those specific activities. Now the electric pulses through DBS can interrupt these erratic signals, helping to reduce the symptoms. So whatever brain disorders are there, generally this deep brain simulation is being utilized for that. Next is the accelerometer. So recently the Google has mentioned that our devices which are using the accelerometer have provided the early warning for the earthquake. So that's why the accelerometer was important. So it is a sensing device that measures the acceleration. Simply whenever you are having your smartphone with you, if it is having accelerometer, most probably it must be having. So when you are moving, it is sensing that thing. When you are stationary, it is sensing that particular aspect also. So it detects the frequency, it measures the acceleration, and then decides what is the intensity of movement. So when the earthquake wave travels, so there are primary waves, secondary waves, there are other waves also. So before arrival of the destructive wave, through the P wave and the S wave related observation, it talks about and it gives you early warning that there may be certain earthquake, right? So there are static acceleration. So suppose if the device is placed here only, it is the static, right? If there is acceleration, this is basically because of the gravity. When it is dynamic, let's say this is a car, if it is moving, and suppose in front it is the obstruction, so there will be accelerometer also here, and that will tell that open the airbag, so that you will be prevented from getting collapsed, right? So there will be airbags deployment. So the application will be for digital devices, vehicles for airbag deployment, drones for stabilizing its position, right? So this is regarding the accelerometer. Next is the Brihadishwar temple. Previously also we had discussed regarding the Brihadishwar temple. Last time when we were talking about this, it was in the context of the 1000th year of the maritime expedition of Rajendra Chola, right? Now there has been recent visit by Prime Minister in the Brihadishwar temple, right? And this particular temple was one such marvel that was created by the imperial Chola dynasty, specifically by Rajaraja Chola in 1010 year, right? So it is also known as Peruvu Diyar Kovil, right? It is present in the Tanjore or the Thanjavur region. Now, the temple is dedicated to Lord Shiva. It is also one such UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Now, there are other temples also, which includes the Gangaikonda Cholapuram and the Airavateshwar temple. Next article is regarding the Paithani Sari. So recently Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Baat talked about the traditional craftsmanship of the Paithani Sari crafters, right? So it is also known as Mahavastra in Maharashtra, and this belongs to the region of Paithan in Maharashtra. So what is this particular craft is? It is a rich, vibrant in colors and woven with the pure silk and the gold zari. Now UPSC has tendency to ask these kind of questions also. Now the origin can be traced to 6th century BC. The distinctive style includes, there are certain motifs that are being used. So there are some icons. For example, there is peacock also. There are things like, let's say, mango is being depicted. The other birds are being depicted. Certain other icons are being depicted, right? So that gives the authenticity to this Paithani sarees. So this particular sarees are from the Maharashtra origin, right? And which kind of sarees? Pure silk with the gold zari. Apart from that, designs are borrowed from the rock cut caves of the Ajanta and Ellora, right? So this is also a very important fact. Lastly, in this is the GI tag. So UPSC can ask, it is also a GI tag. Yes, the GI tag was provided in 2010. So with this, we have completed the current affairs discussion of 27th and 28th July, right? Now there must be certain questions that are visible in on your screen. Now attempt those questions and also go to the digital current affairs website, and there are quiz also with respect to that. Try to attempt those quiz and make sure that your current affairs preparation is going on in the integrated manner. Okay? I hope the things are very clear to you. Thank you everyone. Have a great day.